We're live.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Councillor William J. Rowley, the chairman of the Performance Scrutiny Committee. People. One of the reasons why this is being hosted today is for information purposes only, and this committee has brought this around because they wanted more information on the scheme called Eliminate. So hopefully we're all going to learn something today. As it says, for information purposes only. And those 3 people watching at home, I hope you enjoy it as well and learn as much as we do. Okay, I have to read out this document first. This scrutiny committee is being conducted on a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government Election Act 2021 and will operate alongside standing orders. Can I remind members that we are being live streamed and that those of you who are appearing at home, turn your microphones off and your cameras off and come in and speak when you are invited to do so. The Council's Code of Conduct applies at all time and standing orders apply whether you are virtual or here in reality with all these wonderful people around the table. So, obviously you can have a copy of this and see it. It is available in Welsh, and there we go. So we're going to get straight into this because we are excited to hear about it today. But before we do so, apologies for absence.
Apologies from Councillor Bright and Councillor Pinto.
Any more apologies? No. Declarations of interest? Well, if you find any during the course of the meeting, you can, of course, declare. Minutes of the previous meeting are before you. Somewhere here. Yeah, there they are. Right, draft minutes of the. You all had a chance to read them. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Thank you. Thank you. And now we go on to item number 4. Eliminate update on pages 9 to 16. And we're going to call the head of Children's Services will be introducing this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting us to Scrutiny today. The report covers 2 areas, eliminate profits from children's social care and also operating without registration. I don't intend to go through the report word by word, but just in terms of summary. The Welsh Government's programme for government contains a number of key commitments relating to the new vision for children's services. And part of that is to eliminate profit from social care. So in essence, really, to prevent providers that provides accommodation in the first instance for children them to become not-for-profit. I suppose the vision is really that the additional monies that we would be saving from these providers could then be reinvested into supporting children looked after. The intention that this will be achieved within 5 years. So by 2026, any new providers that are not for profit won't be able to be registered within Wales, and by 2027, all registered, all profit-making providers will be deregistered by Care Inspectorate of Wales. The local authority is working nationally, regionally and locally to build efficiency within the local areas and nationally. There are task and finish groups that are working together in order to develop provisions for children moving forward. Some of the challenges with this is that some of the providers of children's residential care and fostering are currently leaving the market, which then leads on to kind of the operating without registration issue, which essentially is where we're unable to identify placement provision for our children looked after local authorities across Wales. So of course this isn't just a Newport issue, this is a nationwide issue, are having to develop bespoke provisions for children, and those provisions aren't registered. This is perceived, is actually by law a criminal offence. So local authorities then have to work closely with CIW in order to try and register any provisions that are operating without registration. So that's kind of a very quick overview, but obviously the report itself contains a lot more detail. So I invite questions from the Scrutiny panel today.
Thank you very much indeed. We've all had a chance to read the report, and we can open up for questions. Councillor Pruitt.
Okay, just help me to understand why they're not for profit. I think you just mentioned it, but if you can sort of help me a little bit more to understand why not for profit is a preferred scheme. What is wrong with profit itself? Is it solely that there's an insufficient number of registered homes can go out of business? Talk me through these.
So in terms of profits, I think we all kind of know within children's services the cost of children's care is astronomical at the moment. Providers seem to be able to control the market in terms of how much they charge for accommodating our children. So Welsh Government believe that what we need to do is move to a not-for-profit provision in order that the monies that we're paying large providers can be reinvested, because ultimately there are a number of providers that are essentially making significant sums of money out of children's provisions, and it doesn't necessarily mean that those provisions that are extremely costly are actually providing a better service to our children.
Any other questions?
Councillor Alvini is indicated.
Councillor Alvini.
Yes, thank you. When we said a not-for-profit, I mean, it's a laudable sort of aim here, not to make money out of children's services. I think that's really good. But are we saying absolutely zero profit? I mean, even, public sector organisations like schools and all that are supposed to make surpluses, about 5% and all that. Are we saying it is absolutely no profit? And then, if that is the case, can we see any takers other than, public sector organisation like ourselves, sort of undertaken to do these functions?
So the word profit, Sally chairs the Eliminate Board, but I know the word profit and how we define profit is a big bone of contention, isn't it, Sally? I don't know if you want to.
So currently Welsh Government are working on a definition of profit. There's been a national consultation in response to this piece of work, and Welsh Government officials and their lawyers are looking at what is profit and what is a profitable organisation. So is that, for example, social enterprise? Where does that fit? For example, if you were a charity, and just as Councillor describes, you were then reinvesting that money does that count as profit? So those definitions, we don't know yet. We're waiting for that to come from Welsh Government in terms of defining profit. I think Natalie's already touched on in response to Councillor Druitt's question. I think the original intention is about large private commercial organisations rather than from for example, as described, schools. But we're still not sure which way this is going to land in terms of definition.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit puzzled, that this sort of report, it just suddenly come to us, really, because I think I saw it was for the attention of the cabinet member at the start of the papers. So, yeah, it's sort of no details, really. It talks about the next Senedd term. So, we're not talking about it happening immediately anyway, are we? Because there is about the next 7 years or more, really.
Councillor, can I just answer 2 questions for you? It came to us because we, the committee, requested further information on eliminate and unregistered. So during the course, that's why it's supported it. And it is imminent. It's imminent. It has to be all in place, all whistles, all bells signed off by 2027. So it's imminently upon us.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that clarification.
That's
and
okay.
I am all for it, really. I don't think we should be out, or no one should be out to make really. The word significant profits has been used. They make profits significantly, it says in the papers. So I think we need some definition. We need some tightening up of what we mean by profit and what sort of margins do we think are reasonable, because whoever is going to provide the service, whether it is us, the council, or voluntary, or maybe even private sector organization, out sort of for the good values of looking after children, we need some definitions. We need something to be more to sort of guide what we are looking for here, and for people and also for the availability of the services, because the last thing we want is to have nobody offering services for looked after children.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other questions? Yeah, correct.
Okay, a number of things. One is, who's financing this? Obviously, we've just sorted our budget out, and I'm interested in where all this money is going to come from, because it's going to be very costly. That's one. The other thing is, a number of children which are taken into care are sometimes put outside of Wales. So obviously this is a Welsh thing, not a UK thing. So what's happening about that? And also there are certain children which are in care which need specialist looking after. So what concerns me is, have Wales got that facility to be able to do that? Because a number of things have been on the radio recently where they've had to go out to Liverpool, Birmingham and so on. So I'm wondering whether the Welsh Government are aware of that possible issue.
Just in terms of the first question, Welsh Government did make significant monies available for Welsh local authorities to bid for under the terms and conditions of Eliminate and Radical Reform. The invite was made to local authorities back last summer, so Newport actually put in for a number of bids, which included to enable us to build placement provision, local placement provision. We also put in a bid to manage a regional team that would support us and our colleagues in Gwent to build sufficiency within placements. We were advised that we were successful in securing significant sums of money in order to enable to do that. The regional team posts are out at the moment for advert. so they'll help us lead regionally in developing placement provision. So in terms of money, we've got money over the next 2 years to support us moving forward, which is, I think I've put in the report, which has enabled us to develop some in-house provision, including. We've actually secured, I think, for eliminate, it's like 2,600,000 over the next year and then the following year under eliminate. And radical reform, we've secured just over 1 million this year and just over 1 million for next year. But that's obviously is grant money for the next 2 years. Just in terms of my understanding is that children that are placed in provision, not-for-profit provision outside of Wales, will need to move back to Wales. Because the intention is that Welsh children will not be placed in profit-making provisions, and our intention is, a number of our children have got significant, complex needs, and is to ensure that we develop a range of provisions for children. So some children require much provisions that are bespoke to their needs. Some children are able to reside in placements that would accommodate up to 4 children. So it's about us thinking about the needs of our children and what accommodation we can provide them.
Yes. It might be 2 questions, but one question is, what sort of age group are we talking about in regards to children? Do you go up to 25?
0 to 18, this is.
0 to 18. The other question is then, does that include asylum seekers, young children?
So at the moment, the majority of children that come to us are unaccompanied between the ages of 16 and 18. We do have, as part of the National Transfer Scheme, some children which were mandated to support children on the National Transfer that are under the age of 16. We do have some foster carers, in-house foster carers that support these young people. But what we've embarked on really is developing Cambridge House as a residential provision for unaccompanied minors that are under the age of 16. And we're also the lead in Gwent in terms of developing provisions for unaccompanied minors. We'll also offer those provisions out to our regional partners as well.
Chair, just to clarify, the reason I asked that question, as I'm on the planning committee, we've had a number of, we've had a property, 2 properties that are requested for specifically for asylum seekers, and the concern was they were going to be unaccompanied children. That's the reason I asked this question.
Thank you for clarifying that. Can I just pick up on one point? The reason that we closed Cambridge House basically wasn't fit for purpose. So the unaccompanied asylum seekers, how much investment are you going to bring it up to date to make it fit for purpose?
So we made a bid to Welsh Government for capital funding in order to renovate the provision. So the provision will be completely renovated and fit for purpose with capital funding. So we won't be out of the capital.
So we won't be moving anyone in there until the renovation has been done.
Absolutely.
And secondly, it just won't be used then for unaccompanied asylum seekers because it will be fit for purpose to house our own people in.
It's not. One of the things that we have when working with unaccompanied asylum seeking children is that their needs are different.
Yeah.
And oddly, as this might sound, very often they're an easier group of children to work with and care for. I know that sounds perverse.
No.
But they're very keen to be in education, employment and training, and they're very keen to, this is Jay's world, but they are children who are desperate to settle and be safe.
Yes, yeah.
So the proximity of Cambridge House to other areas is much less of a challenge with this group than it was with other children who were in our care. So it is a very different.
But with the level of investment that we got going back into Cambridge House, because that was an asset we were going to dispose of, now we're going to invest money in it. Given the fact that Eliminate is not for profit, we need to be able to have access for our natural non-unaccompanied people that we normally service. The unaccompanied asylum seeker, put that to one side. They will grow and they will go on into society. What happens then? Do we bring our own into there, or are we just investing money for a short term?
We're mandated by the Home Office, so we don't have any choice in terms of, so we're on cycles in terms of unaccompanied children that arrive in Kent and that are placed in hotels. Each local authority across the UK has to take a certain number of children on a cycle. So we, of course, we do need to provide for these children in provisions. So we would always have to care because we're mandated to care for them.
But you see what I'm getting at is that when we arrive at a time, well, we don't have to have special provision for unaccompanied asylum seekers, and hopefully that time will come. Then the facility itself has to be of a standard that we could adopt, especially given the fact that we're going down the Eliminate for profits, which is, and I'm actually amazed, and this is for information only, that they're still debating what profit is. I thought they would have got that right first time.
Can I just say that it's really important that we're able to welcome asylum seekers and that we have appropriate provision. We're confident that this scheme to adapt Cambridge House is cost effective, or would a new build be a better alternative?
I think for us, when we considered it and we put the bid, Joe may be able to update. I know Joe was heavily involved in terms of putting the bid in. We believe it is cost effective, and of course the Home Office provide finances for each of the unaccompanied children that are in our care. But in terms of cost effectiveness, Joe, I know that you were heavily involved putting the bid for Cambridge House, didn't you?
Yeah, so we looked at a lot of properties, a lot of areas for these young people. We had to make sure we were looking at somewhere where they can be near their communities that they want to go to, so perhaps the mosque, so shops and sort of the areas that they would be able to move into as they grow older. So actually it is really difficult in Newport to find a property that's large enough, that has the space and the parking that would meet the criteria that we wanted. And actually when we looked into it, excuse me, Cambridge House actually fit the criteria more than any other property we could look into. Does that make sense? We needed it to be near transport links and those sort of areas. So we did really look into it. So for us, it was far more cost effective to have our own property that Newport already owned and to have that asset and then to do it up rather than to buy a whole new property and to restart from the beginning, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Anwali.
Just wanted to come on that last point, which wasn't what I raised my hand for. Well, that's because, to be honest with you, the council seemed to restrict its search to a couple of wards looking for those suitable properties. I mean, I don't know why they don't go a little bit wider. You know, we have a good bus network in Newport and so on, but they seem to always want to put these kind of places either in Stohill or in Pell, which is really kind of get a lot of people quite cross, to be honest with you, because they feel they've been unfairly targeted with those kind of of properties. I mean, that's just by the by. I wasn't going to comment on that. My question was.
Just a second, can I interject there a second?
Okay.
The report before us is, and I fall foul sometimes myself, is that is for information. The officers can only, they can't pass comment, but I don't want us, and it's not for specific conversation about the specifics of what's happening in anybody's wards.
And I said that, Chair.
Yeah.
I accept that, Chair. It's just that the officer asked the question, does that make sense? That's why I came in. I was going to ask a question about the report, actually. So if I could move to that one, with your permission, is that okay?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Section 5, you know, I read quite an interesting sort of expose of the issues and risks in Section 4. And in Section 5, it talks about the National Eliminate Board has been established and has agreed a set of principles to underpin the programme work. Can I ask, please, that in view of the sort of issues outlined in Section 4, you know, the kind of anxiety, a kind of whether, you know, we're going to have the private sector or the independent sector joining in and all that sort of thing. Can I ask who is on that National Eliminate Board? Who has been invited to be on that National Eliminate Board?
Thank you.
So the National Board is chaired by Albert Heaney, who's the Chief Social Worker for Wales, and then it has a range of representation. It has representation from the private providers, but also from the charitable providers. It has representation from the Children's Commissioner's Office, Care Inspectorate Wales, Social Care Wales, and then from the local authorities. So it has a range of representation on it, looking at all of these issues. They also have legal representation from Welsh Government because of the particular legal challenges that seem to be forthcoming in this area. Sitting underneath the National Board.
But does it have representative from the sort of private sector whom we are trying sort of to persuade to move to a system of values rather than profit? Does it have that?
So it's had representation from the private sector since the board commenced its work. Sitting underneath the board are 3 work streams, one focused on local authorities, one focused on not-for-profit providers, so charities predominantly, and one focused specifically on the private providers. So the board itself has representation from the private sector, and then there is a work stream specifically working with those organisations and those providers to look at what the future changes may mean for them. Okay.
It would be useful to have maybe a statement on the composition of that, either in the minutes or in a subsequent email. I think I would find that useful, Chair.
And that will be provided for all members of the committee. Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other points of view? Thank you.
One other, Chair. This is basically up and running already with the regional and the national in Wales. At 2026-27, you've now got to disregard profit organisations. What happens when we haven't got enough of the non-for-profit organisations, and do we have facilities to go back to Welsh Government further funding to be able to accommodate new properties for those children which are in care?
It's a really good question. I think the challenge is that, in effect, depending on the outcome of the public consultation, which we're still waiting for, but assuming that we go ahead, and Welsh Government goes ahead with the dates in 2026 and then 2027, our task is to be ready for those dates. I suppose the challenge is making sure, and I suppose part of the reason for wanting to be here really is to say this is a very significant piece of work from a resource issue for the local authorities. And in terms of the driver, it is huge for us at the moment. And we are not a local authority that has hundreds of children in these placements. We have a relatively small number of children, but nonetheless, it is a very big challenge. If those placements are not available, we are going to have to really work as hard as we can to ensure that they are. That's the first thing. And then that comes back to the point that Natalie made in the paper, which was about placements operating without registration. That is the risk of this.
Yeah, that's what it worries me. If they don't become registered, then it falls off with the local.
I mean, I suppose if I was being optimistic and cheerful and all of those things, I would say, of course, we will be ready. If I was being realistic, I would say that it is a source of very considerable anxiety and concern for us, that will we be ready by those days?
Can I ask officers possibly if they do find it difficult, say in end of 2025, would they come back to the committee and let us know?
We want to be a partner in this. We need to be able to get that absolutely right. Let's go back to the Eliminate program, the panacea that's going to cure all ills and throw whatever profit means, because Welsh government don't know what it means. We can't identify what it means. All that's gone. Now we're looking at the risks, and the risks are that we have providers leaving and not offering further provision for us. So we got less places to put more children into. So if we're not ready by 25, 26, 27, if we're not ready and we don't have places, I suggest you have a duty of care to these children, and you will be placing them in unregistered places because you won't be not providing them. So this whole eliminate isn't eliminating, it's costing. It's actually, the idea of it is something that we can all sign up to. I think it's a lovely idea. I think it's flawed. We haven't even started to look at took-in employees across with trade unions. I know that these conversations are now earnestly beginning. My biggest problem is that we haven't got enough private provision at the moment, and we won't have enough public provision by the time we get there. Which brings me to the unregistered placement costs. How much are we spending on unregistered placements in Newport now?
A significant sum of money. Sure.
But that doesn't answer my question. What is the significant? If you haven't got the answer, that's fine. Just say, I don't have the answer, and I'll get you the answer.
We can come back. Figures, yeah.
So it's an insignificant, to use your words, say it again for me.
It's thousands of pounds each week.
And could it be millions?
No.
Over the year?
No.
Over the year?
Every year it is a challenge.
It's challenging. You see, because what's going to happen is come 25, 26, 27, because the way I see it at the moment is that we haven't got enough places. That's why we're going into the unregistered field, which we all know is a criminal offence. It's a criminal offence. We know going forward that we are likely to create and to commit a further criminal offence and spend more cash. It's just an opinion on this paper. It's not an indictment on the officers that are before us today. Make no mistake about it. And I think that's what's been said about coming back and keeping in contact with us, especially on those issues, be important. Councillor Drew.
Just want to say that I'm shocked to see the number of children and young people who are placed in placements operating without registration. But I would welcome the efforts that are being made to eliminate profit, and especially the operating without registration. So thank you for all the efforts that you are making to safeguard our children.
Yes, that's a double-edged sword, isn't it? So there we go. Thank you, Pat. Are there any more questions on eliminate?
One further question, Chair.
Thank you.
That would be the last thing, as far as I'm concerned. We purchased properties in the past to bring children out of Newport back into Newport.
Yes.
Have we been looking, or are we proposed to be looking at doing more of that?
Yeah, I think refer to kind of next steps. So we're currently working with other providers so at the moment we've got there's a provision that we're looking for our disabled children. So there are currently very few providers that will care for our children with the most complex needs. So what we're hoping to do is to bring our children that are placed out of county back in to Newport. There's been a bid for capital funding to renovate a local property for our disabled children, and we are working in partnership with another provider, but that will be our provision for our disabled children. So there's that. We're also work closely with Action for Children, who are currently renovating another property in Newport, and again that's for children with complex needs. I think that the partnership work, we want to enter into a lot more arrangements with kind of supported accommodation providers as well, rather than building a larger portfolio of our own accommodation, if that makes sense. So yeah, you know, where possible, that's our plan.
Chair, when following on from that, just to round it all up, in regards to what's happening in regards to the other authorities, you know, Craffu, Pobl, are they doing the same, or are we just working as a region to spread it all around the regions?
Yeah, absolutely. They're working as a we, and there's an expectation that they do exactly the same. Newport is in a better position than most because we've already got a considerable number of in-house provisions for our children. We're taking the lead, so I mentioned earlier in terms of the regional team, so we'll host that team, which will support us working together as a region to develop provision locally.
That's all I've got.
Are there any other questions? There's no other questions on this part of the report. You'll just bring the introducible amounts back to us. And it is difficult to have figures available. It is difficult. Absolutely, but we are spending money, and we need to know exactly what the future tag could look like. You know? But because, as I say, this is the framework that we have to work with, and that's what we can do at this moment.
Chair, they said that there wasn't a definition of profit.
No, there's not.
When are we likely to get that?
I think Welsh Government officials are currently working on that, so we wait.
I don't know, maybe they don't have Google down in Cardiff. I'm sure that would give them a definition of profit quite clear and quite concise.
Okay.
You know. There we go. Okay, we go now to item 7.
I think we've missed the register of social landlords piece, Jay, on page 17.
Yes, do you want
It's not really for me to comment on.
to?
It's,
No.
again, for information only, if I
Yeah.
our way with registered social landlords. This committee on action, but if not,
This. Okay. I didn't really. And then, yes. It's there.
Registered social landlords, what concerns me is the amount of people which are actually on the waiting list now is 9,000. This has actually gone up from when the social landlords first took over, which was 7 plus. So what concerns me, Chair, are they building properties as social housing or affordable homes? This is one thing which I continually ask when we get a planning application from the planning committee. How many social housing properties are there and how many affordable homes are there? Which is totally different, but they never seem to be able to tell. Yes. So what concerns me is the registered social landlords seem to be aiming for affordable homes all the time and not social housing, which is really required because it's gone up for 2000 since social landlords.
Yes.
So that's what worries me in regards to that change.
So, I mean, this work actually sits in a different.
Yeah, it does.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't answer
No,
that
no,
question, I'm
you
sure
can't.
colleagues would. We do have quite a lot to do with registered social landlords because of the work they do with families, with young people, but also with developments for people with particular needs as well. But in terms of your question, Councillor Watkins, I think we're going to start colleagues.
Yes, but sometimes it has a number of, it has an effect
Yes,
on what you're trying to do as well.
and it is a real challenge in terms of supporting the people that we work with in terms of the context. Yeah.
Any other questions on this item? It's for noting then, thank you.
and then it is me.
Yeah. We can, go. Thank you. I hope your other colleagues found it useful. And thank you. Thank you. Thanks for allowing us to get back.
Thank you.
Oh, pleasure.
Bye. Bye.
Over to me, if you don't mind, Chair.
Yeah.
So, just as an update of what's in front of you, I'll start again with the action sheet. I'm still waiting for a few things from Sally, but we are working together to get it all put together for committee.
Yeah.
And in terms of our next meeting, the next and last meeting for this year, well, this
Academic year.
this council year, if you will,
Council. Yes.
is on the 28th of this month of March. It's for the disabled parking bays report and for the update about the step up, step down programme. That's all from me. I'm still waiting for the actions to come back and I'll forward them as soon as I have them.
Thank you very much indeed. As it is the end, 28th will be the last meeting in the municipal council year, as it used to be called that. I'm sure it still is called that, but there you go. And if there is no other business before us, everything else is not in. So we're going to call the end of the meeting. So thank you. Thank you. And
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.